Welcome to the Hembury Books Podcast. Today, our guest is Casey Ray, who is the author of James and Elle, Part-memoir, Part-fiction, which came out in February this year. Casey lives on the mid-north coast of New South Wales with her husband and two wildflower children. She's passionate about good food, well-being, and creating a better future for our young people. With 15 years of experience in working in education, she knows how important it is for people to have access to engaging literature that promotes deep thinking around mental health and relationships. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Casey.
Oh, thank you, Jess. I'm so thrilled to be here. It's fabulous. I'm so excited.
Well, can you tell people who may not have read James and Elle what your book is about?
Yeah, sure. So James and Elle, it's a very personal story. It's a labour of love, and it's essentially about two characters, James and Elle, and their siblings. And it's a hybrid memoir where the two characters are navigating childhood trauma and how that unravels in their adulthood. And it's very much just looking at what it's like to walk alongside somebody who has post-traumatic stress disorder. James, as a young adult, he joined the Australian Army and he went to Afghanistan. And while he was serving over there, a tragic accident happened. And when he came back to the mainland, he was a real shadow of himself. And so his sister Elle tries to support him through the crippling PTSD and then his spiraling addictions. So it's very much an insight into the impact that PTSD and mental health has on the characters and their relationships, and really just looks at the family ties between the characters and the challenges that people face when a family member is in crisis, but also really highlights the love, that unconditional love that we have for each other. So
it's a beautiful story. I don't have a brother, but it's how I imagine that really deep love that, you know, even when $14,000 goes missing or something, it can endure those kinds of things. And it's beautifully written, and to me, it's so ambitious. And I have never met anyone who's done a hybrid memoir. So this kind of rocks my world. Something is either true or made up. And your book straddles both worlds. So I would love to hear why you decided to make it hybrid memoir, and also what is hybrid memoir?
Yeah, okay, sure. So I don't think originally when I set out to write, I knew that it would be a hybrid memoir. I think when I set out to write, it was very much about documenting my brother's journey. But when I started writing, it became our story and it evolved during the writing process. And then I blurred the lines between fiction and reality just because I didn't feel like I had all of the knowledge to be able to accurately portray other characters' perspectives. And so it was just during the writing process, it became our story, I guess, and the alternating perspectives. And so while I say to people that while the events are all real, the setting and the emotions might be a little bit distorted and they're fictionalized. And so I wanted to capture the emotion, but I couldn't, I'm just a person. I can't say that I know exactly what everybody was feeling and thinking at the time. So, yeah.
Did you begin the book writing in first person?
Yes, and it was really challenging. I found it very emotional.
Yeah.
I don't think I was where I needed to be in my healing journey to write in first person. And so when I shifted perspective and I made these characters into characters, James and Elle, it was like I was able to look from above instead of from within and looking out, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was able to, by shifting that perspective, I was able to really explore it on a different level.
And what about the other sibling, Lance?
Yeah, Lance, the monster. What do you mean? Like for me so I didn't have his voice in there as such.
No, but I don't, because I don't want to interrogate you as to what is true or to give things away. But is Lance based on a real person?
Yes, Lance is
Wow.
based on a real person. Yep. And so, yeah, that was definitely a big part of the story, of looking at James has PTSD from Afghanistan, but also from before that. Although actually I don't want to give too much away, do I?
Yeah, but it's a terribly sad book, and that must have been really, really hard to write about, and it makes total sense to me. I'm just wary. I'm not trying to ask questions that are leading questions which parts are real and which parts are not, if that makes sense.
Well,
why, like a lot of people, for similar reasons, there's a lot of trauma, they write about true events, but they simply call it fiction. Why did you make the decision to say this is part memoir?
Yeah, okay, interesting. I found it important for me to validate young James and young Elle's voice. I wanted people to know that there are little James and little Elles in the world, and so I wanted it to be part memoir for people to know that it's based on truth, yet there is a fictional side, and also, sure, for legal reasons as well, of having the changing names and characters and places, etc. But yeah, I just think that people really like reading true stories. It's almost like under the darkness, the forbidden doorways, these taboo secrets and people like to see what's behind those doorways. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted it to be a part memoir and part fiction. I think just my writing style as well led to the fiction.
I agree because one of the questions for you is, are you going to write another book, and would that be fiction? Because you have a fiction, it sort of reads like a real page turner. Your descriptions are really strong and that kind of thing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's definitely some feedback that I've been given, and was intentional. I wanted people to be involved in the story and to want to read on. And yes, I am writing another book, and it will be fiction. But again, based on, I have these two characters that just mean the world to me, and I want to explore their perspective. So similar but different. So my second book won't be nearly as emotional or as personal. But yeah, I hope to still explore the nuances around mental health. And I think the judgments that society have of people who are adults and they have addiction, and there's a stigma around that. But I hope in my storytelling to unravel what has led the adult to have an addiction. That there's more to them than just being an addict.
Yeah, that's a wonderful purpose for a book to have. From a legal point of view, do you have any knowledge around, because, with memoir, there is often a fraught family relationship. There could be issues of defamation. So, sometimes it's better to completely de-identify the character or something, but you can't always do that. What is the advice you got? And I know that you're not a lawyer. When it's a blend, no one but you can say, well, that part was not, what was said about that person, that is a fictional character or something.
Yeah. It was just in the author's note at the beginning, I did say that whilst many of the events were real, there was still fiction, names and places have been changed. The advice was to change what I could, but a story is still worth telling, and people tell stories all the time, and there's truth and fiction in storytelling. And so I am not afraid of the repercussions. I think I was leading up to publication. There was a lot of fear and a lot of vulnerability and a lot of the what ifs. Are people going to interpret this? I had shared the story with the closest people in my life to get their okay and approval to go ahead. And that was really important to me. And then the side characters, not so much. I had mentioned it to people. But yeah, just in my inner circle, really, it was that approval to publish and to share our story. And yeah, so I hope that the author's note is fairly clear that there is an intention here. And yeah, it's been interesting to see how it was received by people beyond my circle. So whilst people who know us, that they've had a very different reaction to, say, people who might be 2 or 3 people removed, and now that it's starting to reach the wider reading community, it's fabulous to hear that people are still moved by it, because I wasn't sure how the story would be received by people who don't know the characters.
Here's the ultimate test as a writer presenting their craft. I saw on Amazon you have a rating of 4.7, which is one of the highest I have ever seen. So people are obviously loving it. Has there been any particularly interesting feedback?
Oh, look, I'm just blown away by the feedback. I'm just so thrilled and humbled and moved, really, by what people have said and messages that I've received. A lot of the feedback is around the writing style and that it is very emotional and a page turner. And although it's covering these really big topics and themes, it doesn't come with all the intricate details that might make you want to look away. And so I know one of the reviews that I had, which I just think encapsulated it so well, was the person had written that it was too hard. No, what did she say? She said that it was hard to read, but impossible to put down. Yeah. And I just thought, wow, that's really insightful, because and then not knowing her and hearing that feedback really touched my heart. I think on a sadder level, though, a lot of feedback that I've had has been readers who identify with Elle and will have sent me messages, and I wasn't quite ready for that kind of feedback. I wasn't ready to take other people's quite personal stories. I was stopped in a park one day by an older lady, and she told me that how moved she was by my book, and we were talking, and then she disclosed her story of her son, and it's those moments when I was in the park with my kids, and it's just those moments I wasn't quite expecting to have the ripple effect from what I had written. I think I might have strayed away from your question, sorry, but
no, it was, what's the feedback been? And that is so interesting, because books do take on a life of their own. And yes, and I feel like I know you deeply. And I can make all these, like we're pretty close. And actually, this is the first conversation we've ever had. But that's weird, isn't it? The reader and the author. But to know that you've moved people so much and they trust you, that must be a really good feeling.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It is, has been very emotional, and I'm thrilled that it has touched people, because that's part of why we write, to share. I've written journals all my life, but then to actually bring this book to publication and to see it out in the world now, where I can't retract it, as it has had all of the feelings attached to it. I remember when it first launched, and a very good friend of mine who I've known, since my teens, she messaged and she said, "I'm reading your book on the train, and I've closed it because I think I'm reading your journal and I don't know if I have your permission." It was this idea that she thought that she was looking at something that was so personal that she wasn't sure that she, should keep reading. I went, please keep reading if you're able to, because I really just wanted that story shared with everybody.
I just love it. I love it when a human being shares themselves in a real way that's honest and vulnerable and deep. To give that to each other as human beings, I think, is what makes us a great species. But it takes so much courage. So you're very brave.
Oh, thanks, Jess. Thank you. It's the human connection, isn't it? It's the
We
human
have a desire to be understood and to understand, which I think is beautiful.
And that's why we read, right?
Yes, that's why I read.
That's why I read as well. And it's that empathy that is created through seeing things through other characters' eyes and feeling what they're feeling. And I really tried to capture that with James and Elle and the emotion that they were going through, and hoping that it would resonate on some level with people. And yeah, I hope that it has. So
it has. It's an absolute, like, the transportation. I think that's when a book succeeds. What was the journey to publication like?
Yeah, a roller coaster. I approached two traditional publishers, and one asked to see a little bit more, and then said this is a very powerful story, but not in, it wasn't for them at that stage, but wished me all the luck. And the other publisher I didn't hear back from. And now I had immersed myself in all the writers groups, all the online platforms and trying to get advice of how to get your book published. And I knew that I had to write these query letters and be persistent and keep going. But because the story is so personal, I then looked at the self-publishing route, and I thought I think that's where I need to go. I need to have ownership of this story.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I was lucky enough to, I was researching, publishers around the country, and Clark and Mackey up in Brisbane really stood out to me because they're one of the oldest publishing houses in
a century old.
Yes, and this and a family-owned business, and also that their books were published here in Australia. That was a personal request of my own, that I wanted it to be made here on shores. And yeah, look, and they were great. It was a publishing services, and so laid out different services, and I was able to pick and choose what I wanted. And then it sat with them. It was in October. It was ready to go, and I had the beautiful cover made. Kiss the Sky graphics, and they're in Sydney. And anyway, so I had it all ready to go with the publisher in October, and they were just waiting for me to say, yep, let's do it, to give them the okay. And so it didn't launch until the 1st of March this year. So I had to really sit with all the feelings around it being out into the world. Yeah, so it took me a little bit of time to say, okay, it's not here in my hands anymore, it's with somebody else, and then it's going to be printed and off into the big wide world. So when it launched, I was very lucky to sell out my first print run just in pre-sales. So yeah, I did I can't believe it, because I'm not great on social media. But I did.
You are great on social media. That is how I found you. We found each other.
Thank you, Jess. Yeah. So I was able to do a lot of, just building up some pre-sales. So I sold out that first print run, which I just still can't even believe that I'm saying that out loud to you.
It's amazing. So the pre-sales were on which outlet?
On my webpage.
Wow.
It's such a big learning curve for me as well, because I'm a teacher by trade and a mum. And so learning social media and designing a web page and looking at marketing, it's been a steep learning curve for me. But I was able to get a web page up and running, and the pre-sales went through there.
And what tips can you share about how you were so successful, apart from having a really compelling story and a beautiful cover?
Yeah, the cover definitely helped. I don't know if I did it all that well, but it was definitely, I would say it's absolutely worthwhile having somebody in your corner who can guide you. And so for me, Clark and Mackey were that, that I had a marketing strategy done up through them. And I would just encourage anybody who's a debut author and looking at where to start, at seeking that assistance, somebody who knows what they're doing. And so, it was just about staying open to advice, asking questions. My husband has his own business, and while it's a very different business, he was often telling me what I should be doing, and and how
principles apply.
Yeah,
it's a product. A book is a product.
Yes, and being able to get it in. People aren't going to read it if they don't know that it's there. So that's been a good piece of advice. I heard somebody say that some really fabulous books don't go anywhere because there's no marketing, and some really average books go a long way because there's a lot of marketing.
There's a lot of noise. Yeah. Can I just ask, with Clark and Mackey, so they're 100 years old. Were they very ahead of the game in offering? Because you said you self-published, but then you went to a publisher. But to be clear, they're a hybrid publisher?
I believe so. Yeah. So I'm not an expert in this area, but they offer publishing services. So
custom publishing, where you are in control. You get to choose the launch date, the cover, the content. Is that how it works with them?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
I mean, that seems really, because that's not the traditional arrangement. The traditional arrangement would be, that the publisher acquires your book, and which you wouldn't not have been comfortable with, and calls the shots and, gets the book out there and stuff. But they must have been doing this. They must be one of the earliest adopters if this is their business model.
Could be. Yeah.
I must learn more.
You should. I mean, they've been fabulous. And they essentially said, this is all the services that we can offer. What do you need? And I pulled some things out. I said, yes, I definitely think I need some help with marketing and branding, although I then went and found my own graphic designer, and we were able to put those things together. They did give me, so I had employed a developmental editor previously, who was in another country. But then I did go through another 2 edits, and there was a bit more feedback in those final stages, which I was very grateful for as well. So I think it's just about being open to receiving feedback.
Okay.
And finding the people who can really support you and make you feel comfortable.
And if you had a tip post-publication for marketing for other authors, what would that be? What's something quite effective that you've found? Instagram?
Surprisingly, I really like Instagram, but I think Facebook is where I've had the most traffic. But what's a tip? Do
you run Facebook ads, or your Facebook page?
I have dabbled with some Facebook ads, yes, of having a post that has had a lot of attention and then turning that into an ad that just goes wider. And I have targeted an audience now that it's been a few months. I can see who's reading my books. So I've been able to target the audience that way.
And the conversions?
The conversions?
Yeah, from Facebook. Has it been a good return on investment?
It's okay. I wouldn't say it's great. I can't quit my day job. But it's
a good tip.
1.5, I think, return. So of what I'm spending, kind of getting another 50% on top of that.
That's great, because you can lose money with advertising. It can be hard if you don't get it right. Absolutely. So a 50% return, I think, is actually terrific.
So I have had, and I've just dabbled because I'm just learning all of this myself.
Yeah.
And just playing with some ads, running them for a few days, setting a limit that I'm comfortable with, and then changing things as I go. So the advertising. So I think on Instagram, what has worked well has been the personal story. So a photo. I've tried to do quotes and I try to do some, really deep and meaningful posts which don't really go very far. But then when I'll do something that's about me or my family and it's got faces in it, they seem to do better. So I think it is that human connection. I do think that people want to see who you are. And I know that you also are quite good on social media and do the talk to camera.
I do.
Yeah. And do you find that they're quite successful?
I do. Yeah, I do. And they're also, I think, quite quick. I've got something to say rather than, write, and I know what I'm going to say rather than writing it, refining it. And I think, you can only put so many words on a post. You can do the carousel, but I don't think the carousels are the best with text, you know. So yeah, I do, but mostly because I use TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
No, I'm not on TikTok.
TikTok's pretty good. The numbers on TikTok far exceed any platform. So what I've done, and of course with TikTok, it has to be talking to camera. That's the format that it requires. So for some of them, not all of them, I then put them onto Instagram, which is how those come about. But yeah, hashtag BookTok. You should, I think you'd find loads of readers there, and you could do advertising on TikTok too.
Okay, that is really good to know, Jess. Hashtag BookTok. BookTok?
Yeah, hashtag BookTok is a sub-community within TikTok, and that is how some authors have gone stratospheric. Like Colleen Hoover, she just made to-camera videos. She's got an unusual personality, apparently, and people responded, and she's talking about real stuff. I think you do really well on TikTok.
Oh, thanks, Jess. All right, I'm going to check it out.
Give it a go. Give it a go. I would love to know more about autofiction. What's the difference? What is autofiction, and what's the difference between that and a hybrid memoir?
So, yeah, I hope I can answer this well for you. My understanding is that autofiction is an abbreviation for autobiographical fiction. So it's based on real life, and essentially in some cases it's the character is the author and they are putting themselves into the story, but then the place or time might be fictionalized. So that's my understanding. And so it's essentially the author putting themselves as a character into the story that they're writing. And so it's auto being themselves, and fiction, which is a little bit made up as well.
Oh, okay. Whereas hybrid memoir is more based in nonfiction, sort of rooted in nonfiction.
Yes.
Like tweaks to fictionalize. Yeah.
And memoir being memories. And then it being hybrid, there might still be some research that's put into it. It's my understanding of hybrid memoir. So it's somebody's interpretation and a story of somebody's life and their memories and moments in time, but also can involve research of the time and place or cultural events of that time.
Now, as the author of a hybrid memoir, have you, when you've done, interviews or been answering questions from readers or things, have you had any awkward questions where people go, so tell me which bits are true?
There have been a few, yes. Mostly people have been quite diplomatic and have just said, wow, Elle's journey, so moving, blah, 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 or James, I just want to cuddle him. Or I have had somebody say that they really understand Pearl a lot better as well. I haven't spoken about Pearl much, but Pearl is the mother figure in the book who does so much supporting as well, while also exploring her own intergenerational trauma, I guess. But yeah, somebody has said, I understand Pearl so much better now, but then there are times for Pearl's story that are fictionalized. But the awkwardness hasn't really been there. We had a big family gathering not that long ago, and I thought it would be quite awkward. But mostly people are just supportive and just, big hugs just to say, well done. Thank you for sharing the story. We had no idea. There's been some of those comments as well. I wish we knew more then than what we know now, that type of thing. But yeah, the awkward moments, not so much. Trying to not make it awkward. Maybe me just being awkward.
But you would just simply say, you just retain the boundaries as an author and say, well, that is the book. That is the book.
Yes. And one of my favorite quotes, Anne Lamont,
yes.
from her book Birds by Bird. By Bird. And she said, I'm paraphrasing it, this might not be the exact quote, but essentially it is, if people wanted you to write better about them, they should have behaved better.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of a go-to quote for me now, because I say, well, I can't tell you exactly what is real and what isn't, but just know that behave. If you behave like a good person, then your character will be presented that way.
You got nothing to worry about. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have these writers in the midst of us, don't we? And no one knows until the book comes that all those Christmases they were talking to a writer.
Yes. Look out.
So your next book, when is that likely to come out?
Oh gosh, Jess, I'm not sure. It's very, very early stages. I have just set some time aside to work on it. And the hardest thing for me is sitting and writing, as I'm sure other writers can empathize. If I'm at home, I get really distracted. I have 2 little kids and 2 needy dogs, and I feel like I've always got to get up and do something. And so I've set some time aside now where I can take myself to the library for 6 hours and I can sit and just be with the laptop. And so that's how I hope to bring this book to life over the next few months.
Hours. You can write for 6 hours at a time.
Not straight through. I sit at the library for 6 hours. That's my time, my work hours, I guess you could call it. And try not to get distracted. But I just love sitting in the library and being surrounded by other people's works. And so I try to write. Some days are really, I can write thousands of words, and other days I might write 500 words. So it's still in the initial stages. So I'm not sure what the timeline is on it. If I could write it in the next 3 or 4 months, I would be happy, and release it next year, I would be thrilled.
Okay, so it could be 2025, 2026 release.
Yes.
Are you building up a big newsletter of fans?
I haven't started that, no.
You could do that because you could capture all the email addresses, and then when the pre-sales open, the pre-orders open, you've got your captive audience.
Yeah, great idea.
Again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to look into this as well, Jess. You're a wealth of knowledge.
Well, if I implemented half the stuff I suggested. Where can people connect with you on social media and buy your book, Casey?
Oh, yeah, like I said, I am in a couple of different places. I have a webpage, Casey Ray Author. Ray is R-A-E. I also have, by the same name, an Instagram, Casey Ray Author, and also on Facebook, Casey Ray Author. My books are also on Amazon as an ebook and a paperback. But I'm not sure if we've spoken about this in the past, but there's not a lot of money comes back to the author from the Amazon sales, but it's still good for ratings, etc. But not as good. Now that I'm an author, I have been buying from the author's page as much as I can so that they get more of the profit.
But what if you buy an ebook? Can people buy an ebook from you?
Absolutely. And did you know, you probably do know, but again, something that I've learnt is that the author receives royalties based on the pages read. So if somebody buys an buys an ebook, the pages that are read get added up, and that's the royalties that they receive.
Well, that's only if you're in the exclusive program with Amazon.
There you go. See, yeah, right. Is that the Kindle Unlimited, is it?
Yeah. Are you in that program?
It must be, yes.
Shouldn't be. You should be wide. You should be with everyone because your royalties should be excellent from Amazon. You should be getting like $6.50 for an ebook and about the same for every paperback, which a direct sale is great because you'll probably make about 8 or 9 for a paperback. But from Amazon, they should be excellent, especially if you're selling a lot like you are.
Okay.
So, did your publisher set that up?
Yeah, in the initial stages, yes. So I have to
probably an offline conversation.
Let's chat more, Jess, and see what we can do. So I'm making about enough to nearly buy myself my soy chai a month from Amazon. So,
but that doesn't seem right because you're selling a lot of book copies. But if your publisher is retaining some royalties, then of course they have a share and you have a share, so that can reduce them. And if your publisher set up your account on Amazon, that's more of a traditional publishing arrangement. With my Hembury Books, I set my authors up on Amazon, but as self-published authors, so I don't keep any royalties. They keep all their royalties.
All right, definitely.
There's not enough to go around is how I feel as an author myself. That's another conversation.
Yeah, we can talk more about that for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Casey. It was fantastic to talk to you, and we'll see you on Instagram.
Oh, thanks so much, Jess. It's been so lovely speaking with you as well. Okay. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.